Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today we're going to be talking about the next entrant in the Fate series called Fate Samurai Remnant, which is an action RPG brought to us by Koei Tecmo. I was lucky enough to receive a key from them for review, and so I've been spending almost all of my free time lately playing. So, without further ado, let's kick it off. The story is set in 17th century Tokugawa era Japan, and it focuses on the story of Miyamoto Iori and his servant that he summoned called Saber. The pair will embark on an epic adventure to attempt to survive a mysterious phenomenon known only as the Waxing Moon Ritual, which should be all too familiar for fans of the Fate series, as it should evoke sort of tastes of the Holy Grail Wars that you've known from other titles, albeit with a couple of other twists. Overall, the feel of the setting is amazing. It truly feels like you're in Tokugawa era Edo. The art style for the game also flexes between an ancient Japanese style as well as a more painterly anime style for the cutscenes, with a polished cel-shaded 3D style for gameplay and the world. Cutscenes are well shot, with a cinematic feel to them. Dialogue is also perfectly lip-synced and includes a Persona-esque visual cut-in every now and then, combined with animated, hand-painted sprites for dialogue. The English subtitles are also up to par, and the only times you'll really find them lacking are some of the offhand comments that Saber will make while you explore an area. The reality here, though, is they're nothing truly important, and it's more just flavor text more than anything. The game settings are also robust and include most of the features that you would expect in a modern game, from windowed modes to controller remapping and mouse sensitivity, as well as graphic settings and more. As a bit of a PSA, however, you'll want to plug in your controller before you boot up the game just to be able to use it. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with it not recognizing it potentially. Honestly, I highly recommend using a controller for Samurai Remnant, as the control schemes really seem to fit that input style. Menus are very crisp and artistic, and fairly straightforward to understand, and the game frequently tutorials you, but not in the overbearing sense, rather in the informative sense as it throws something new at you. The only areas I really found this to be lacking in this regard were that it didn't actually explain how to evade in the very beginning of the game, which if you're using a controller should be R2 on that controller. However, again, you may find issues where you don't quite understand the stats. Just make sure you actually go through your primer, as anything that you've already seen, you can actually go back and easily review any of the tutorials in the primer in your menu. That being said, it's actually pretty easy to just pick up and dive right in, even for those of you who aren't fans of action RPGs or the Fate series. The game style is overall theme park in terms of its zones, and has many to explore. In fact, in the time I've spent playing the game, I can flat out tell you that not only is the overarching world map huge, but I have not managed to explore all of Edo or even close to it in that time. Zones have plenty of side content and challenges for you to complete extra rewards, and you'll want to do everything you can, as it will increase your experience gains, skill gems, and give you opportunities to earn crafting materials and money, which you're going to need a lot of in this game. The story is also fairly well done for a Fate standard. That is to say, it truly feels like an interesting spin on a conventional Grail War and incorporates the concept of territory creation and control on top of it that we don't actually see too much of in the other Fate IPs. You will battle for territory via the Spirit Font battle node, which is a system akin to Fate Grand Order's Grailfront system, mixed up with a little bit of, say, Chinese checkers, or again, just adding a little bit of turn-based strategy to the mix. Your goal is to capture the enemy's spirit fonts before your turns expire. If you manage to capture a font from an enemy, your time will also extend. But you'll have to maneuver carefully to conquer the whole board in time, given that your opponent can do the same. Later, you'll gain the use of special Mystic Code abilities or even other servants to aid you in these battles. giving the Spirit Font mode a lot of depth as a turn-based strategy simulator. Speaking of upgrades, they are important. Early battles, especially on harder difficulties, which I spent the majority of my time playing on the hardest difficulty, can be very tough and long if you haven't been leveling your skill trees and taking your weapon mounting upgrades. You will have numerous opportunities to do so, so don't fret that. However, make sure that you explore zones fully for items and do every battle that you can. Even on repeat visits to an area, you'll often find that things will actually respawn, including some of the mundane crafting mats, as well as the battles, allowing you to gain more materials and more experience. You'll definitely want to abuse that as much as you can if you're on one of the harder difficulties. Your home in Asakusa will also be your base of operations that you'll have plenty to do at as well, so make sure you stop by it frequently. While there, you can rest to replenish your HP if needed, although there are other ways of doing this, including eating while you're out exploring the zones, which is something that you'll often find will be sort of incentivized by either your interactions with Saber or the challenges that you have for a particular zone. You can also craft Buddha statues for skill unlocks and selling at a later point once you manage to unlock it, so it's wise to do these as often as you get them. And you can maintain your swords as well at your home, which will increase your experience gains from battle by virtue of using a sort of rhythm-based type of system. Each one of these is going to be their own fun little mini game, and you'll want to do them as much as you can to give yourself an edge. If you do this often, you'll get in the habit of stopping by and checking your room's Mage Workshop. This will be a good idea, as you'll want to unlock new features and effects as soon as they come available and can be purchased for the workshop. The workshop itself allows you to boost the HP that you'll gain from eating food at stalls, reduce the amount of money you'll have to pay to buy things from vendors. It will allow you to also craft gems that you'll use in magic casting, and unlock new stances for Iori. And my own personal recommendation, increasing the rate of your affinity gauge gains, which can be very useful for you for being able to use more of Saber's abilities faster. However, you'll spend most of your time in Fate Samurai Remnant fighting, and the game doesn't skimp where it counts. As I mentioned before, Samurai Remnant is an action RPG, but it blends in some of the musou and beat-em-up genres to keep combat fresh, engaging, and fun. Normally you'll encounter groups of enemies with a boss or two inside to make it so that it's not all fodder. However, bosses will usually have a shell gauge to protect them from harm, an effect similar to the break bar from Fate Grand Order. However, it should look a little bit more like a purple circle over the enemy's silhouette. Shell gauges can't normally be damaged by Iori's attacks, so you'll have to employ magic, hit the boss while it's recovering from an attack, or use servants like Saber to break the gauge. But that's not all, because you're not going to spend all of your time unable to damage enemies, as you can also use Iori's Valor gauge, Saber's affinity techniques, and their combined link strikes will help mix up the flow of battle and keep you on your path to victory. You can also get locked in sword duels, which function as a quick time prompt to mash your attack buttons displayed on screen, but can and will change back and forth fast in order to give you a dynamic feel. So it's not just going to be just mashing one button the whole time. Saber can also follow up your attacks or assist you if you are in a time of need, but don't rely on this too often, as it won't happen every time. You'll also have different stances for Iori that work better in select situations, but the game does do a good job of informing you what those are the second you acquire them. So far in my run, I've managed to acquire not only the Earth stance, but also the Wind stance and the Water stance, all of which have each wildly different uses. Later on, you'll also gain the ability to have other servant companions join you, but I'll let you discover who those are for yourself when you play through the story. All in all, the only complaint I have, if any, about combat actually comes from switching targets, as it can be difficult to get the right enemy in your focus at the right time due to you trying to stay mobile and keep your camera spinning. You'll want to make sure that you keep your enemies where you can see them at all times, as they'll frequently perform red glowing charge moves that can only be interrupted with a heavy attack of your own or some other highly powerful ability. However, I should denote that if it's a servant using one of these red moves, you're going to need something more powerful than just Iori's own heavy attack for that. But ultimately, this isn't the biggest complaint with regards to targeting. And I have to admit, as a skeptic coming in, I've been having a lot of fun with the system for the most part. Most of my concerns were actually that the game would feel overly like a musou game, which in the past have gotten pretty stale and boring for me. But Samurai Remnant doesn't have that issue. Also, while you're between story quests, you'll gain the ability to do digressions, the game's form of story interludes for its cast of characters that you'll meet along the way. These range from mysteries and fetch quests to full-scale boss battles that can actually be quite challenging. The game doesn't always do the best job of informing you of the difficulty of these engagements though. But as the game frequently reminds you, discretion is the better part of valor. So don't be afraid to retreat from a fight that's too much for you to handle, and come back after you've gotten some more upgrades. In summary, the game has a fantastic painterly aesthetic, a great story worthy of the Fate franchise, with fun side content to keep you bouncing from one thing to the next, and fast-paced, variant action combat that leaves you craving more. I had no issues running this game on my PC, and very rarely encountered anything resembling a bug. And while I haven't finished the story yet, I'm told there is a New Game Plus-like feature for events that can only occur after the first run of the game. I'd say overall that Koei Tecmo nailed the feel of this game and made me a believer by setting a new standard for the Fate series. Samurai Remnant is absolutely a must-buy for fans of that Fate series, and has something that even the uninitiated can enjoy. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment below, and don't forget to subscribe, as I'll be making even more Samurai Remnant videos in the days to come to help guide you through your time in Edo. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys for the next one.